an incubator or accelerator. Not necessarily, a startup has to be funded only by those two entities, but there are other ways also you can raise funds. Okay, we'll talk about that. I will, turn on my. Can you please turn on your video for a couple of minutes so that Gerald can take attendance very quickly, and then we can start. Gerald? So can you ask the student to unmute their video? Gerald?
Sir.
Can you ask students to come in video, Bob?
Yes. Students. Kritik. Santosh.
Take it back.
Hello, sir.
So Santosh and Ritik, you were there yesterday, or you were only attending today's session?
Sir, yesterday, last half an hour, only attend.
Okay, no problem. We will touch base, with those things today also. Good. All right, Gerald, you can make me a presenter mode now. 1 minute, I'll switch off my video. Thank you, ma'am. You can unmute your video. Yeah, if any queries, you can just quickly unmute. Okay, good. Just give me a minute. Yeah, students, today we'll be. Gerald, why it's not coming in full screen, pa? I want to.
Sir, entire screen on the sir. Present entire screen.
Zoom, I'm comfortable in Zoom, but
visible, sir. Screen visible.
Change layout to full screen.
Full screen, sir.
That's okay. In the screen, it will be comfortable.
நீங்க அந்த எக்ஸிக்யூட்டிவ் கூட போட்டு விட்டுருங்க.
ஆட்டோ மோட் ஆவணும்.
பிரசன்டர் மோட்ல போட்டு விட்டுருங்க.
பிரசன்டர் மோட். இத நீ வந்து பவர் பாயிண்ட்ல பிரசன்ட் சொல்றியா?
பவர் பாயிண்ட்ல பிரசன்ட்.
You cannot click that from here in this mode. So I have to give stop presenting now. I give present your entire screen now. It is coming within this window, pa. I cannot even.
தெரியுது சார், உங்க ஸ்கிரீன் வருது.
இல்ல அது இல்ல பா, I cannot tap bro. Now Gerald, is it okay?
Okay. Okay sir.
Good, very good. So students, yesterday we were talking about incubator and accelerator, not from the funding perspective, but of course, how you can enroll in a incubation program, whether it is our own college incubation KRIC, or how you can become a co-incubatee of any other incubation center. So that was our prime focus yesterday. But today, from a different context, we are talking, how to fund your startup. It is a very, wide topic. But yesterday I touched in a very high level. I spoke about difference between grant, debt, and an equity. Can anyone summarize what we spoke about grant and debt? I'll come into equity now. Any student here or faculty member? Because there are a couple of students, they were not there in yesterday's session, so it will be helpful if you can recall what we discussed yesterday.
Yes, sir. Basically, grant is it's a fund received from government agencies, government organizations or government agencies actually, related to startup.
Very good, very good.
And equity is to get shares from other investors or something like some percentage
Very
of
good.
shares.
So, very, very good try, ma'am. Good. See, students, if you are starting your startup and if you are planning to raise fund, you should have a very good understanding about grant, debt, and equity. How many students here, like Ritik, I know Ritik, who else is planning to start a startup? We have one faculty startup here, Dr. Tamal Selvi ma'am, who is doing in a fantastic way. They have started a company, registered a private limited company. They got DPAAT recognition. So they are doing a fantastic job. Like this, there are other incubatees also there, both external and internal. But I just want to know how many of the students here are planning to start a startup. Ritik?
Yes, sir.
Are you planning to start your startup in future, or you are planning to go get a placement?
Sir, now I am concentrating in placement. Maybe if I have a good idea, I can do it.
Okay, very good. Any other student here? All right, no problem. So maybe in future or in near future or far future or whoever doing now, you should have very clear understanding about what is grant, debt, and equity if you are raising funds. Okay, as ma'am said, grants are mostly given by financial aid given by government agencies, whether state government, under state government. There are a lot of departments. DST can provide you grant, Niti Aayog, and then there are other state government agencies also providing grant now. EDA, Tamil Nadu is providing grant. So grant is nothing but aid for your startup to kickstart, where you don't have to repay that. It's not a debt, neither it is an equity. Debt means definitely you have to repay with interest. Am I right? A grant doesn't even have a meager interest, meaning that it's interest free, not even in loan or in nothing. It's just totally interest free and there is no repayment. Isn't it amazing? Am I right? To get grant should be your first priority when you are in a very early stage, but grant cannot be more than, to my understanding, grant cannot be more than like 10-20 lakhs. If it goes like 50 lakhs or 1 crore, then even the government funding will be given as a debt instrument. So grant, the only advantage of grant is, during your early stage, you want to test your proof of concept. You have to test your hypothesis. You have a great idea, but you just want to know whether it works or not, and you want to develop your prototype or you want to develop your MVP. So those kind, if you are in that early stage, then it is a wise decision to get grant. But nevertheless, debt is also nowadays given in a very small amount, like 5 to 10 lakhs through an incubation center or through an accelerator program. there are certain debt instrument that's been distributed through incubators also. So it is not just, grant alone is a small amount. Even the debt is also, nowadays people are getting a small amount of debt from incubators and other accelerators as a soft loan, meaning the interest rate is very, very less. If you're getting some loan from a bank at an interest rate of 12% per annum or from 15% per annum, here you get it at like 4 or 5% per annum. I'm talking about just like less than 0.5% per month. So you get 5 lakh loan, as a soft loan, you can repay it very comfortably once you start making revenue in your business. And the good thing is, even the debts, you don't have to start repay immediately. You have a you call a holiday period, a moratorium, a legal delay of your payment, meaning you can start paying once you launch your product, you have a good go-to-market strategy, you start making revenue out of it, then you can start repaying it. So they're very comfortable when in terms of supporting startups at very early stage. That is the role of incubators. Since incubators are non-profit entities, like how our KR Innovation Center, we are a Session 8 company. It's a non-profit organization where the sole aim or the vision of our incubation center is to benefit entrepreneurs in campus as well as from outside. So if you're not getting grant, then going to a debt model at a very comfortable interest rate with a very comfortable moratorium period. Like say if it's your incubation period is 1 or 2 years, you can avail that and you can start repaying after 2 years. This is what we discussed yesterday. And NEC Business Incubator, KR Innovation Center, whenever we provide any kind of fund, we provide as a soft loan, the debt model in the middle. The third one, that I didn't discuss yesterday, it is nothing but, a equity-based model. Here also you don't have to, you need not repay. Only debt has to be repaid. If you see at the bottom, I would have put need to repay. And grant, you don't have to repay. So equity is nothing but like a shares. If it's a public limited company, of course you can buy in a secondary market. You go, if it's a listed firm, you buy shares outside and you resell it. So that is a different thing. But here, startups, most probably 99.99%, they are a private limited company and they're they're not publicly held. They are just closely internally held. So in this scenario, you as a founder of a startup can dilute your equity. Say if you have 100%, you are 2 co-founders, each one is having 50%. You can give like 10% or 20% of your company in exchange for 10-20 lakhs in the very, very early stage. Maybe you just develop a product, you don't have a traction, you don't have revenue. I'm talking about that stage. But when you're in a growth stage or you're making good revenue and you can do valuation of your startup at 1 or 2 crore, then that is a different story. You can dilute your equity at a much, we can dilute very less for more money. So that depends on the valuation and what stage your startup is in. Here today, I am talking predominantly about the companies in pre-seed or seed stage startups. That means the very, very early stage. You just have a raw idea. But equity in the sense like, equity, when you talk about equity, it has to be a registered private limited company for a investor to invest in it. You can register as a sole proprietor company or as a partnership firm, but the investors are not interested to give you money or to fund your startup if you're not converting your company as a private limited company, because they'll be comfortable only to invest if your legal entity is a private limited company, not even an LLP. So if you're planning to start a startup, at one stage you have to register your company under company law, 2013 company law, as a private limited company. Maybe you are 3 or 4 promoters or co-founders, you join together, you launch a startup, then you're approaching a private investor, you are giving him 10%, 20%, 5% or whatever, depends on the valuation I said, am I right? So those are the things, we can help, like, in an NEC business incubator, we can help you how to structure your startup and in what percentage you can give for an investor or something like that. So, but that takes some time, am I right? You have to start a company, you have to have a good product, you have to have a traction. Only then, if you talk about equity fund, it is like a distant thing. It is not going to happen right away when you are in a very, very early stage of your product development, like MVP development or something like that. So, as I said yesterday, equity alone is like a very vast topic, and equity can be structured in a different way too. There are something called CCD, compulsory convertible debentures, and CCPS. So those things, what happens is initially you will be giving investors as a debt, but there is a precondition in the sense that eventually once your startup is going to raise second round of funding, that can be converted into an equity. So that is a mix, that is a hybrid thing, a mix of debt plus equity. So you don't have to confuse CCD and CCPS at this stage. And if you are if you are at that stage, definitely I'll help you on that. But those are like terms, the financial terms and the instrument. You have to have a greater understanding down the road. Okay, so just you keep in mind that is a hybrid thing. CCD and CCPS are hybrid form of debt and equity, where initially you'll be issuing a debt instrument, but that can be converted into equity at a later stage. Meaning, the reason is, since you're an early stage company, sometimes you cannot have a right valuation. You cannot say, hey, my company is valued 1 crore, my company is valued 2 crore. It is very hard to value your company because you just have an idea. You have just 2 or 3 people starting a company. That's it, and you won't even have a good MVP at that stage. So it is very hard to value your company to raise equity funds. So in that scenario, you will be raising money as a debt. But since you are a startup, the risk factor is more for you. So as a founder-friendly instrument, there is a term called CCPS, or CCD, where it will compulsorily convert into an equity at later stage where you don't have to repay. So if it's a debt instrument, you have to repay at one point, but here 2 or 3 years, once that period is over, automatically that will convert into an equity. So in that way, you will be safe that, okay, you don't have to repay at that time, but you have to give your share to that investor who has, who got CCD or CCPS from you. Okay. Again, that is again a separate topic altogether. I just want you to have a very good understanding about grant, debt, and equity. Just in a high level, you understand this. So it's always good, where you don't have to repay. But that is a trade-off in equity where you have to give shares. But in a grant, you're not going to repay money, or you don't have to give equity shares, nothing. So the best part is grant at a very early stage if it's less than 20 lakhs. But if it's going anything more than 20 lakhs, it will be structured as a debt or an equity. Okay, you understand? Any queries? Because this is an important thing. This is a slide I'm going to. It is going to take you to next level. So I just want to make sure you're clear in it before we move on to next slide. Any question? Students, faculty members, ma'am.
Sir, you said some sort of a preconditioning for a mix of debt and equity.
Yeah. See, debt combined with equity, there is something called CCD, compulsory convertible debentures, they call it, where initially it will be a debt instrument, but there is something called precondition in that document. It will say that once Cogniate Private Limited has raising the next level of funding, at that time it will convert into equity for the first investors, because at this stage it is very hard to value your company. So initially you will be giving, say for example, one of the investors is giving you 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs as a debt now, but that is not a pure debt, but it is a CCD, compulsory convertible debt, down the road, it will be converted into an equity at a later stage in 2-3 years when you raise second round of funding. At that time, the first investor will get that equity at a much discounted rate because he already given money to you ahead of like 2 years ahead for an equity share, but that is given as a debt in the beginning. Because if it's an equity, then you have to value your startup, and you cannot value it at a very early stage. How can you say what value is your startup when you are in MVP stage? You cannot value your company. That is why company law has a provision that it is a combination, it's a hybrid of both debt and equity, where it will be compulsory converted equity. So startup always have to choose compulsory convertible equity. There are something called non-convertible debentures are there, but I don't think that is applicable for a startup, because you cannot say, the risk is so high. 9 out of 10 startups fail, and even the investors know that, and you don't want to put yourself into big trouble when you avail a loan or debt. Am I right? So it is a very complex thing. You have to pay interest, and you won't be having revenue as you think, because it will take like 2-3 years for you to start making revenue, other things. So you cannot commit, say, a repayment or interest or something like that. So equity is the best thing, where, okay, I got 10 lakhs from you. I cannot, I don't want to repay, but instead I'll convert that into an equity, saying that I'll be giving 10%. My co-founder will give 5% of his share, and I'll give 5%. You take 10 lakhs. If it's a big amount, 50 lakhs, then you give 15% of your person, and Ganavidram will give his 15%, and you bring another investor for 30%. That we don't know. I'm just giving an arbitrary number. So you either you have to repay, or you have to go as a equity. You have to give equity. Meaning you have to give shares, the equity shares in your startup, the common shares. Or sometimes there is something called CCPS, where the investor will ask for preference shares. Okay, they'll get the preference in terms when your company is faces liquidity crisis, or during a bankruptcy time. Meaning you are going to shut down your operation or something. They at that time, whatever the asset left out, the investor get the first preference if they hold the preference shares compared to common shares. So that in a high level, you just keep that in mind. You don't have to go deeper into into that at this time. So the point here is, your motive is, since it's a startup, you don't have to repay because you cannot afford to repay. So that is why we discourage startups to get bank loan, because it will be too soon. Maybe after 5 years or 10 years, when you're in a mature state and you start making good revenue out of it, and you have good cash flow, at that time you could think about paying interest, for a bank loan, and principal and interest you can pay very comfortably. But for the first 2-3 years, I don't think it is a wise decision, because we are all in a deep tech companies. The risk factor is huge. So you have to, sail through this period in a very comfortable way, because you will be thinking about how to, launch my product, how to acquire market share. Because it is not that easy for you to get revenue immediately in the first 1 or 2 years. So always think about how you can structure where you don't have to repay. So a grant is a better first option. The second is the hybrid form of debt and equity. The third is the equity thing. So you'll completely neglect debt funding in the first 2-3 years, provided if it's a soft loan, that is fine, where the moratorium is at least 2 years. Say, for example, in Creek, you don't have to pay your the prototype fund that you got in the startup-a-thon. You don't have to repay for the first 2 years. You can repay after 2 years once you make good amount of money, or you have a good investment. So that is a term we have signed with you. Am I right, ma'am? You understand? Am I right? Tamil Selvi, ma'am. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
You're cleared now, am I right? The debt versus equity.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, good. So, students, you are something, into it, where you're building something to succeed. Am I right? But in the whole process, there are lots of ups and downs, and money is just one of the ingredients for building a startup, and it is not everything, as you all know. So whenever we talk about business, immediately say, hey, who will be giving me an initial investment? Not necessarily that every time money is just, is the only hindrance. Am I right? See, there are many other things. We are talking about technology, team, idea, like, have you validated those ideas? So a lot of other factors determine the success of a startup. And same way, funding is just one ingredient that you need. Of course, it is needed, but it is not that, if you don't get funding, you cannot start or run your startup. So that is a myth, I would say, because nowadays, like, every startup founders think they need some kind of funding to launch or start their startup. So I wouldn't say that funding is a must. No, that there are smart founders who start their startup with very less money. Of course, you need very, very less. Say, for example, you can just start your startup with 1 lakh, I would say. Even to start a petty shop now, you need at least 2 lakhs. Am I right? But to start a technology startup, you don't need more than 1 lakh. If you frame it in a nice way, if you're acquainted or you associated with an incubation center, you get a co-working space. They provide you with an IPR support. They provide you with the patent filing fees. So there are n number of things that you get it for free nowadays from an incubation center. You don't have to go rent an office space. For hiring students or interns, you can pay very less and hire people if you are associated with a academic incubation center. So these are things you have to keep in mind. So the days are gone where you need 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs or 50 lakhs. Of course, everybody needs money at different stage in a different level to meet out their expenses, but not necessarily that you need. You cannot run your startup without funding. You can run it. That's what I said, with little or no money, if you plan it in a nice way. So bootstrapping is the first option for any founders, because you have to shell out from your own pocket, your own money that might be borrowed from your family, friends, or from your own savings. Am I right? You work somewhere and you put little money into your startup and you're running it. So this is the right approach. Am I right? Because you cannot go ask an investor saying, or you can ask a funding agency without showing something how you're going to raise your fund. Say, for example, I need 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs. You cannot just go write a proposal saying, hey, I have an idea. Because the idea is just a commodity. The idea is everywhere now. So you have to have some kind of a tangible thing. Say, I have a prototype. I have an MVP. I have a great team. I have registered my company. I have a DAP, IIT recognition. So these are things you have to do. You have to do your homework. You have to do certain things for first 6 months to 1 year. For that, you need just very little money, less than 1 lakh you need. Probably in certain scenarios, if your product is a very high-tech product, you might need extra couple of lakhs. That's it. So it is not a huge investment to start a startup, like how you're starting a factory or an industrial unit. So if you're starting a web-based or a mobile app business, it's pretty much easy, provided you are going to be a developer for your startup. Sometimes then you get a couple of your friends to do that app and you can launch it. And if you're developing an IoT-based product, our college, through our Makerspace lab, we can get you all those components. If you feel that is a viable business model, if you have a viable business, you can develop around that. So those are things, it is easy to sort out and rise. So the advantage of bootstrapping is, when you lack money, you will be innovating in a very simplistic way. Because when you have more money, you will add more complexity at very initial stage. So I have seen that. So when you're trying to innovate, and when you don't have money, you're just using your own money to develop a prototype or an MVP, you will be very cautious. You don't want to put extra features into your product, and you don't want to put some complex component to show that that you're innovating with complexity. Am I right? Complexity is not equivalent to innovation. In fact, simplicity will be equivalent great innovation, I would say, because that will lead to sustainable product and sustainable business model down the road. So don't think that, say, I have seen some students from electronics background, they'll come and say, sir, I'll put this 10 sensors in my product and it will be an amazing product. I would say it is not that 10 components or 10 sensors that will make your product a great product, but the use case around that product, meaning even if you have one sensors and if your use case is innovative or application is innovative, that will bring more value rather than just adding too much complexity in your product. So only if you for developing a complex product, definitely you need fund. Am I right? You will say, sir, I need 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs, otherwise I cannot even launch my product. The same way, some people will come and say they were developing a web and mobile app, sir, I want to add this feature, that, and then, they'll add more complexity to their product and say, without money, now I cannot launch the product. So just you remove the factor complexity, then you can bootstrap, meaning that you can put your own money and develop your prototype or a MVP. So this is something where you start with less money in a frugal way, will teach you how to run your company in the long run, even when you're making more money and when you're raising more funds, and you'll be utilizing that in a much a productive way or in an efficient way, your capital or your revenue or anything, I would say. And also your focus will be to generate revenue very quickly if you're doing in a bootstrap mode. So these are advantages of bootstrapping. So you have to always think revenue is cheaper than angel or VC fund. So in fact, today's topic is about how to raise funds. As I said, it's totally a myth. If somebody thinks that without funding I cannot start a startup, so just you just erase that from your mind. That only if there is a funding, if I have money, I can start my company. Though nothing like that. So we are here to help you guys. We'll teach you how to start your startup with very less money, say like less than $1 lakh. That is the beauty, of starting a startup in a bootstrap mode. Okay, so you would always think revenue is cheaper than angel or VC fund. Meaning, of course, it's your revenue. You don't have to pay interest or you don't have to give your equity to anyone. Am I right? So revenue is very, very cheap money that you get. So your focus should be the first priority is to get customer money. Meaning, even if before you launch, there are people in a very smart way, they get revenue, a pre-order for their future product, and with that money they develop their product. I have seen that many products that been so successful have been developed using pre-order revenue. Pre-order in the sense, say you're going to develop an agriculture product for a farmer, so you go approach a farmer, you just show some in a drawing or in a very low-fi prototype model, you show him something saying, hey, okay, I'm going to build something for you like this. You give me 50% of the amount. Now say the product is 30,000, and you pay me now 20%, and you give me 10,000 once I deliver the product. So you with that, because the 10,000 is your profit, the remaining 20,000 is where you want to buy those component and build that product, and you're going to deliver to him. Am I right? So that 20,000 is being raised in a much smarter way from your customer itself. Am I right? Instead of going to your friends and family saying, hey, give me money, I want to develop a product and then sell to that farmer, you're going to your end customer saying, hey, I am going to develop something like this for you. Please give me 60% or 70% of the amount. The remaining 30% is your profit. You don't have to get it right away. You develop that product with that 70% of the money, and then you deliver, and you make money. So there are entrepreneurs, the smart entrepreneurs do this way. Now you can ask me, which is the best way to fund your startup? The students, you're with me? Hello? Hello? Gerald?
Sir, சொல்லுங்க சார்.
Am I audible? Is it clear? Everyone is with me, ba?
Sir, audible தான் sir.
Okay, good. Yeah. So, can any one student come forward and say what is the advantages of bootstrapping and what is that we want to chase? Is that we want to chase the fund or you want to chase your customer? Which is the right way? Students? Hello. So startup must need external funding. There is no doubt about it. But if you don't get the angel or VC fund, you're not out of business. So don't think that only guys who are raised fund from outside are successful startups. So this is a myth we have busted today. So meaning that okay, you got very clear in your mind that okay, I'm not expecting any external funding. If it comes, it comes. It's good. But even if it doesn't, even if I'm not going to get, I'm just going to run my business with my customer money or with my own bootstrap fund or with a little money that I'm going to get from an incubation center. Okay. So these are the companies that provide pre-seed funding. But I'll talk about the incubators funding now. You all know Startup India Seed Fund Scheme has been recently launched, and they this is one good thing. They provide funding in two ways. One through a grant model for startups with who need less than 20 lakhs to take their product into commercialization and the initial launch of their product and to do product trial and prototype development. The other side of this funding is they're providing 50 lakhs for little matured startups who have shown traction and who have a good product market fit, but they provide this fund as a debt instrument, and as a soft loan you have to repay if you're availing 50 lakhs. That is mean more than 20 lakhs from from any incubation center that is being distributing this kind of funds. So these are central government schemes, Startup India Seed Fund Scheme, and then DST is giving seed fund through Nidhi scheme, and that is one of the popular scheme. And of course, our incubation centers applied for that. Hopefully, maybe in the near future, we might get this kind of fund to support all the startups. So startups cannot directly get these funds, but they have to get through recognized incubation center like us. And we are in the process of applying Startup India Seed Fund Scheme for our incubation center. So the other things we applied, but we are just waiting due to pandemic. The agency haven't started processing this. ACIC is another a funding scheme by Niti Aayog. They're developing Atal Community Innovation Centers around India. And we also applied for that, and through that also you can avail seed fund scheme. And the interesting thing is almost now every state government in India has come up with their own startup policy, and Tamil Nadu government under they have made EDA as a nodal agency for Tamil Nadu's a promotion of startups, and they're through that nodal agency they are distributing funds, or they're setting up incubation centers around Tamil Nadu in public or government colleges, not in private colleges yet, but incubation centers like us can act as a knowledge partner to distribute those funds, but they're not giving any direct assistance to incubation centers, since we are a private incubation center, private college. But there are a lot of colleges like Periyar University in Salem, and here Agriculture University locally in Kilikulam, I think. Those are incubation centers supported directly by EDAA. Then in Telangana, they have T-Hub. If you are planning to move to Telangana and you want to establish, it is a huge facility they have established, state government. And Kerala, if you're planning to start your startup in Kochi and Kerala, then Kerala Startup Mission has their own incubation center where they give funds for Kerala registered startups. So, and Odisha is one of the leading, state in helping startups in a much bigger way. So you guys have to have a very good understanding, because when you go pan India and you are establishing your startup in a much bigger way, then you can avail these kind of state government. You can apply for state government funds also. So this is a very important thing. You have to keep in mind. And KTech is Karnataka Tech Innovation Hub there, but they're powering through. They're distributing their funds through academic institution again. So unlike Kerala Startup Mission and T-Hub, Telangana, other states, they have a nodal agency, and through them they are doing it. But in both ways, it is good. Some state government run their own incubation centers like Kerala Startup Mission, but it is okay. It's like Tamil Nadu, they are running through, they're setting up incubation centers through academic institutions. So that is another model, but it is good, because universities will also always be a knowledge partner in your journey, am I right? In your innovation and startup journey. So that's good. So it is not that you have to apply only for our incubation program. You can, as a thing, you can apply with us, and then you can be a co-incubatee, or you can get funding from anywhere, as long as you succeed and you provide employment to more students who are graduating, or or you generate revenue and create wealth. So this is the two motives for any state or central government scheme. And our mission is also the same in KRIC. Our vision is very clear that in next 10 years we want to provide more employment through our startups. So already our faculty startup, they started employing 2 or 3 people with their own funds. They bootstrapped, and of course they are also funded through our KRIC, and they're doing a fantastic job. And if you students, one of any student, who have a vision of starting a startup, we can guide you in a much bigger way than any other incubation centers in and around Koilpeti, I think. So below Madurai, we are one of the institute where we are helping students and faculties in a much greater way to start a startup and their entrepreneurship journey. So yesterday I talked about incubation centers through central government. You can make a note of it, and in state government, funds through these kind of a setup through a nodal agency. And there are like accelerators, global accelerators also. But I would say, if you're applying for Y Combinator or Techstars or Surge, these are not incubation program. Incubation and acceleration is different in one aspect, because incubation usually runs for 1 to 2 years, but acceleration program is very short, for 3 months, where they will have a structured program and they will help you with networking with other people. And it is like when you're scaling up, you can choose an accelerator, but mostly I have seen that in our college level, our students are just starting up their project. So we associate with an incubation centers like us, and then apply for co-incubation. Then after 1 or 2 years, once you have a traction or some kind of a revenue, then you go and apply for an accelerator, where, say for example, you develop a product and you launched it in a select market. Then you plan, I want to go pan India, beyond Tamil Nadu. I want to take it to Karnataka or Kerala. At that time, you can choose an accelerator program. That way it will be helpful, because they'll provide you with some kind of grant to scale up. Plus, they'll provide you a good network connection, and they will also facilitate the future fundraising for you. So that is the job of an accelerator. So this might be too early if you're idea, if you're in an idea level startup or in an MVP. So you just go out and launch it. You get some customers. You make little money. You get little traction. Or if you're an app or a mobile app, make sure that is being downloaded by X number of people in Google Play Store and so on. So then you go approach an accelerator. That is a right step. Okay, so when this is, I am not going to talk about when to approach VC. I'm talking about when to not approach VC. So this is not a time, you go up. I'm not asking you to go approach an angel or VC, because this is the time, you approach an incubation center. And again, as once you grow, you come up with a revenue model, then you approach a VC, because VC look for always an unicorn. So you have to test your hypothesis, and then you have to go to a VC or angel, not too early to a VC. And sometimes there are innovative startups that address a very niche space. Okay, it's not that every startup will be a unicorn. You know what is the definition of unicorn? Can anyone give me a definition of unicorn? Recently, you would have heard that a lot of unicorns are being coming up. Unicorn is a startup that is valued at $1 billion US dollar. So in Indian rupee, it is 7,500 crore market, or the valuation should be, your company valuation should be 7,500 crore. But so it is not that easy to enter a unicorn club. Am I right? So VC always look for that great potential. So there are time period that, when you're in very, very early stage, you cannot approach a VC, and it's like wasting our time. Am I right? So that is not a good thing. So you bootstrap in initial days to build your MVP, launch it. You have a minimal viable product. So that is the first thing. And you always look for fund from an incubation side, not from a VC or angel, because that is like wasting our time. Am I right? But after 2 years, if you show a good progress, and if it's have a great potential, then VC will chase you. It is not that you are going to chase them. In fact, they will come behind you if you are having some kind of attraction or revenue. So your job is not to attract, your job is to attract angel and VC, not to chase them. It is like a magnet. They'll automatically come, and you will get a call one day saying, hey, I will come and invest in your company. So that's what I have seen. It is not the other way. So if you start chasing them, it is not going to work at very, very early stage, because today's topic is all about funding your startup in very early stage, meaning you are in an idea level startup and you are developing your MVP. So the grant is always the best thing for you at this time. So with that, I'm covering a 2-day session. I'm completing this 2-day session of the importance of incubation centers and how you want to position your startup at a very, very early stage, maybe through bootstrapping, or you can borrow little money from your friends and family, or from an incubation center like us to start your company, and to position yourself. That should be your aim, and it is not to chase angel or VC at a very early stage. So this is what my takeaway is. Don't chase investors at too early stage. Let them chase you, meaning that you are going to chase only the customers, not your investors. Okay. So understanding about the funding scheme is important. Startup India seed fund scheme today I spoke about. Then I will talk about the myth. Startup must need external funding to be in business. That's a myth. No way. Okay, this is another takeaway. And customer money is the cheapest money. This is again an important point that you have to keep in mind. Okay. And these 3 things, the advantages of bootstrapping is you'll be innovating in a much greater way, and you'll be a more frugal company compared to others, and you can generate revenue in a very faster manner if you are bootstrapping. Okay, good. Now can anyone come forward and summarize like what we have talked today and yesterday? A little bit, maybe 2-3 minutes, even if it's right or wrong, don't worry about it. I just want to know you have a good understanding. I'll take the first slide what we spoke, where we started. So that is very important thing. Okay, now can any one student come forward?
Hrithik Roshan.
Santosh?
Sir, I have one doubt, sir.
Yes, Pa.
சார் அந்த மித் அப்படின்றதுல வந்துட்டு எக்ஸ்டர்னல் ஃபண்ட் வந்து பிசினஸ்க்கு மஸ்ட் அப்படின்னு சொல்லியிருந்தீங்களா சார்?
Myth, that is a myth. You don't need external fund. Am I right? In the very early stage, you don't need external fund. That is a myth. People think, oh, I don't have funds, so I'm not starting a company. So no way. I've seen that there are great student startup, now doing in a much greater way with revenue and other thing, because they're chasing customers from the beginning. So you chase customers. Don't chase any funding agency. You always chase customers, and yeah, that is a myth.
Okay,
It's a
sir.
very wrong ideology that you need a fund always to start. I said little or no money. Am I right? Of course, registration, all those things. It is less than a lakh. ஒரு பெட்டி கடை ஆரம்பிக்கிறோன்னா உனக்கு 2-3 லட்ச ரூபா தேவை. ஒரு பெட்டி கடை ஆரம்பிக்கிறதோட கம்மியான பணம் தான் தேவை ஸ்டார்ட் அப் ஆரம்பிக்கிறது. ஒரு பெட்டி கடை ஆரம்பிக்கணும் எவ்வளவு ஆகும்? ரோட்டோரமா போய் ஒரு மளிகை கடை ஆரம்பிக்கணும் எவ்வளவு ஆகும்? 5,000 ஆரம்பிச்சிருவியா? போய் ஒரு 200 ஸ்கொயர் ஃபீட் இடம் பார்க்கணும், ஒரு 1 லட்ச ரூபா அட்வான்ஸ் இல்லை 50,000 அட்வான்ஸ் கொடுக்கணும் ஃபர்ஸ்ட். அப்புறம் ரேக் அடிக்கணும், அதுக்கு ஒரு 50,000 ரூபா உள்ள கொஞ்சம் இன்டிகிரேட் பண்ணணும். அப்புறம் இன்வென்ட்ரி கொண்டு வரணும், கொஞ்சம் ஜாமான் வாங்கி வைக்கணும் உள்ள 1 லட்ச ரூபாய்க்கு. அப்பதான் மக்கள் அட்ராக்ட் ஆவாங்க. அப்படிதானே? ஒரு 10 பிஸ்கட் பாக்கெட்டாவது இருக்கணும். அதுக்கப்புறம் மளிகை ஜாமான் அது கொஞ்சம் வாங்கி வைக்கணும், அதுவே ஒரு 1.5 லட்ச ரூபா ஆயிரும். ஒரு 3 லட்ச ரூபா இல்லாம நீ ஒரு சின்ன கடை ஆரம்பிச்சிருவியா சந்தோஷ்?
இல்ல சார், எல்லாத்தையும்
எல்லாம் சேர்த்து அப்புறம் ஒரு ஆளாவது வேலைக்கு போடணும், இல்ல நீனே நின்று உன்னை சர்வ் பண்ணணும், அட்லீஸ்ட் ஒரு ஆளாவது உட்காரணும். எல்லாம் சேர்த்தனா எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு ஒரு 3-4 லட்ச ரூபா ஆயிரும். ஆனா இங்க ஸ்டார்ட் அப் ஆரம்பிக்கிறதுக்கு 1 to 2 lakh வச்சு ஆரம்பிச்சிடுறாங்க இப்பெல்லாம். என்ன தமிழ் செல்வி மேம் கரெக்ட் தானே?
சரி ஐ டு அக்ரி வித் யூ.
நம்ம வந்து ஒரு பெட்டி கடை ஆரம்பிக்கிறதோட கம்மியான பணம் தானே ஆகுது இந்த காலகட்டத்தில் ஸ்டார்ட் அப் ஆரம்பிக்கிறதுக்கு.
கண்டிப்பா சார். only thing is we need to have ideation. That's it.
Yeah, so of course you need, that's why I said it's little money. That's a myth. So பணம் இருந்தாலும் ஆரம்பிக்கணும். ஃபேக்டரி ஆரம்பிக்கல, நம்ம ஒன்றும் பெருசா ஆரம்பிக்கல. So with less than 2 lakhs, people are doing a fantastic job now. Students or faculty startups. So this is the takeaway. So that is why I put the word myth. Many students and faculty have a very wrong notion that what they think is the funding is a must for starting a startup. I'm not saying down the road everybody need money to expand and to scale up, maybe 20 lakhs, 50 lakhs or 1 crore or 2 crore. That is absolutely fine. But I'm talking about in the initial stage, the first 6 months to 1 year period, or the first 3 months. So at that time you don't need much money. You just have to ideate, you have to come up with your POC, you have to test your hypothesis, you have to develop your MVP. So this is the important stage I'm talking about. Clear pa Santosh?
Yes sir, clear sir, understand sir.
Very good. All right guys, so before we wind up today, so thank you Shakti ma'am. Tomorrow we have another interesting session with our incubating company. It's called Love to Farm. They're one of our incubating. So maybe you can, she's one of a women entrepreneur, but she's struggling now in a sense, like she launched it and she's trying to get some traction, but it's not an easy thing. She's struggling. So maybe she can give her best and suffering part of how to start a startup probably, and eventually she will succeed, because that is the tenacity they have as an entrepreneur. And like Tamil Selvi ma'am and Ganapati Ram, everybody struggle in one way or other, but eventually everybody will succeed if they keep, if they have, stubborn and persistent in achieving their goal, they will succeed. So tomorrow in this same series, we have a women entrepreneur named Kalai Priya. She will be giving you a talk tomorrow. Okay. So with that, thank you so much, guys. I look forward to meet you all tomorrow in the session. Have a wonderful day. Any other question before we wind up? I have to thank Shakti ma'am for getting students and organizing this in a much seamless fashion. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, Tamil ma'am. So we'll meet tomorrow then, for our webinar. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.